Hey, what's going on, guys? XpertFusion here, and today I'm going to be giving you guys my review for The Walking Dead Season 9, Episode 2, which was titled The Bridge. So, this episode was very, very good. I absolutely loved it. Now, I want to preface it by saying there's a lot of people that are spreading positivity throughout this season, which is great. I've been seeing 90% good stuff about this season rather than the usual Walking Dead hate that used to happen back in Season 7 and 8. But I can't help but think, if it was the same exact thing as to what we're getting now, like the same episode, but it was Scott Gimple who was showrunner and he was still in that showrunner position, I feel like people would hate on the show still. I really do. I don't think the show is people caring. The majority of people, or a decent amount of people. I don't know if it's the majority or how many, but you tend to see people saying, instead of saying just good stuff about the episode, they tend to say, oh, praise Angela. Thank you, Angela, because, she's a new showrunner. And I'm sitting here like, you realize the showrunner isn't the only person who's in charge of the show. Just like Scott Gimple wasn't the only person in charge of seasons 4 to 8. So even if you didn't like the season, I hate how people automatically go towards blaming the showrunner. It's like just the same thing people do with politics. Whenever there's a problem going on, you know what they do? First things first, they go and blame the president. They blame whoever is in charge because that's the easiest person to blame. You think they're in charge, so they automatically have control of everything. But newsflash, president doesn't even have control of that much. He really doesn't. His powers are actually pretty damn limited compared to Congress and everyone who votes in the Senate and the House of Reps. Same thing with The Walking Dead. The showrunner isn't the only one putting decisions down and making the show what it is. The acting, the directors, the producers, they all have say. The writers, I know Angela Kang's the showrunner, so yes, she does have a lot of influence on what happens, but so does every other writer in the room. Literally, there was I believe his name was David Leslie Johnson, I think is his name. He was a writer of this episode, but people were still praising Angela. Why not praise him? He was the one who actually wrote the dialogue, so all the good dialogue you got was written by him, not by Angela. Even though Angela probably did help with the writing, because when they have a specific writer for an episode, usually that's just a person who finalized and published the actual script itself. But most likely, all the writers, all of them, not just Angela, worked, including Scott Gimple. Yes, Scott Gimple is still a Walking Dead writer. He's actually writing episode 5, so I would love to. I'm so excited for episode 5 because I'm pretty sure it's going to be one of the best episodes, just considering it's Rick's final episode and it's written by Scott Gimple. And I can't wait till people praise it, but then they realize Scott Gimple wrote it, and then they're going to be like, you know what, this episode sucks. I kind of hope that happens because I feel like that'd be hypocritical and kind of funny in my opinion. But yeah, Angela's not the only one who is in charge of the show. People need to realize that. Tons of other people in charge. But that doesn't mean she's not doing a great job. She's doing a fantastic job, just like Scott Gimple did a fantastic job with his seasons. So I want to get that out of the way. But overall, this episode was fucking incredible. So one nitpick I have is that I kind of wish we saw more communities, just like I had last week, the nitpick, because we've seen a lot of hilltops so far. Like, that's the only community we've really had shown precisely. The Sanctuary a little bit in episode 1. But we haven't really seen much of Alexandria, which I really want to. I believe we are next episode, so that's exciting. We haven't seen anything of the kingdom at all, not one little piece of the kingdom. We haven't really seen the Oceanside. We haven't seen the Oceanside at all, actually. And I just wish we could see a little bit of it. But this episode had probably one of the most cringeworthy, gut-wrenching scenes I've ever seen in The Walking Dead history, which is surprising because we've seen people get their heads bashed in, but for some reason this felt more gruesome than all the other scenes before, and that was the wooden log falling on Aaron's arm and then seeing his arm after it. And the reason why I think that's so much more gut-wrenching is just the practical effects they use on it, because for the most part, when they do stuff like the head bashing in of certain characters, when they do certain deaths in The Walking Dead, they do a little bit of practical and then they do a little bit of CGI. That's kind of how they tend to do their effects. But I don't know if this was any CGI. It probably was a little bit of CGI, but it looked very practical. That looked like a real arm that just got crushed by something. And did the wood fall hard enough for it to crush his arm? Was that realistic? I don't know. I really don't know how that would work. But I thought it was fucking brutal. I saw it happen. I cringed. I was like, holy shit. I mean, just looking at his arm, I was like, yeah, they're gonna have to cut it off. And the fact that Sadiq left and that left Enid in charge was a huge character development moment for Enid. Enid did great in this episode. I thought that was awesome how they're making her be kind of like a doctor in learning. She's learning how to do different medical things because they're going to need more people to do it because she's younger. The younger people are going to be more accessible for the future because they're obviously not going to die as soon. So it's very smart of them to teach more people how to do different things. So now Enid can actually help people out in these situations. Now, was it realistic that she 100% did it correctly and no mistakes? I don't know, maybe. But at the same time, I don't care about, how realistic things are. It's a goddamn TV show, so get over yourself if you're actually complaining about that. Daryl in this episode was great. I'm loving Daryl this season. I mean, I've always loved Daryl. I always thought he was interesting and a fun character to, explore, but I disagree with people saying that he hasn't had any lines since like season 2. I don't know what I don't understand when people say that. Yes, he's to himself, and that's just who his character is. He's always been to himself. Yes, he has been pretty prominent in these episodes, but he's also been pretty damn prominent in season 7 and 8. I mean, it's kind of hard to have a lot of character interactions between certain people and lines of dialogue that are, meaningful when you're in times of war. That's why season 8 felt so different than any other season, because they were in a war the whole season. They were depressed. They were always losing people left and right. There was no time for fun interactions between characters. It was all fighting, and that was what made season 8 so great, because we all are used to having a bunch of character interactions in previous seasons. So it was something different, something new, something we kind of needed, because that's what All Out War is. And now season 9 is kind of giving us what season 8 wasn't, which is good, because we don't want the same thing every year. No one wants that. But then we had Justin. I want to talk about Justin, the character of Justin overall, getting jumped at the end by somebody. I still think it was probably Daryl picking off the saviors. Maybe he thinks this guy's a threat. He's going to cause a problem. I'm going to go kill him and hide him so no one will see him die, basically. They won't know it was me, because I think this guy is going to cause an issue in the future, and I don't want to see it happen. But at the same time, I feel like that's way too brutal for Daryl. I mean, Daryl's a brutal person, yes, but I don't think he would do that, to be honest. So I'm just going to preface, I honestly don't think it was Daryl, even though part of me thinks it is. At first, I thought it was Daryl. Actually, no, at first I thought it was a Whisperer, but then I was like, no, it's too early for the Whisperers. Whisperers are going to be after the time skip, after episode 5, after Rick leaves and all that type of stuff happens. So don't expect Whisperers in the next few episodes. It'll happen probably episode 6 or 7. That's when we'll start seeing Whisperers. So prepare for it, but don't, expect it anytime soon. Michonne and Maggie at the Hilltop was nice. I like the whole thing with Earl being in the prison and the fact that Earl's wife wanted to see him. I like the prison, how they have it set up there, because we're probably going to need to use that later on for the whole Lydia thing in later episodes, obviously. And I also did like how I like how they keep showing the babies. I want to see Gracie. I don't know if we've seen Gracie yet. And you might be like, well, what's so important about seeing babies? It's just remembering that they're in the world, that they're still there. Because sometimes, like, The Walking Dead likes to forget about certain characters. Like, I remember there was a certain point where we didn't see Judith for, 12 episodes straight. Now, I'm not saying that's a problem. I mean, obviously, that's just the fact that there's not always, you can't always access these babies. They usually use the same one for a long time, and then they might change one out when they grow up. But they're not always accessible, right? So it makes sense. But I'm just happy that they're showing baby Herschel a lot. And I just want to see Gracie as well. I think that'd be interesting to see how she's doing, because I don't think we saw Gracie yet. I'm assuming she's still there. I don't really know how exactly. Oh, wait, no, I think Aaron said something about Gracie, right? Aaron said that she was changing her diaper and it just exploded or whatever. I think Aaron said that. Aaron said that, but I thought he was talking about baby Herschel, but then I realized it's probably talking about Gracie, considering he was the one taking care of Gracie, so that would make sense. But now that he has one arm, he probably is going to need help. So maybe Daryl will help out. Maybe, I don't know. Because they were talking. Daryl was like, or Aaron said, Daryl, you'd be a great father. And that, that happened. I really like this interesting, interactions going on between the saviors and the group. I really like how some of them are kind of just like getting along with the group, and some of them are just, they can't do it. They're just dicks by nature. It's just how they are. They were at a war. It's really hard to come together after something like that. And I really like how they're focusing on this, because it's definitely not something they should have skipped over, which I'm glad they aren't, because it's just realistic. It makes sense. This is something that would happen after a group comes together in war. It's what happened after World War One. The Germans were still kind of iffy with everyone else, all the other countries that they fought in World War One. but they tried to get along, and it just didn't work, and it led to World War II. We might see an all-out War II eventually. The comics didn't really have one in a major way. They kind of had a semi-all-out War II where Sherry and that group came together and fought after them, like kind of during the Whisper War, sort of. I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with Dwight. People said we're probably not going to see Dwight in season 9, which is really weird to me. So I really don't know what the hell they're doing with Dwight. They might just have him come back season 10 with Sherry, maybe, and maybe there'll be an all-out war season 2 or all-out war 2 situation going on, like a mini all-out war. I'm not talking about like a whole season's worth of war, but something like what we saw in the comics right after the Whisper War and such. Would be interesting. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Overall, great episode. I think I liked it better than last week. Even though last week was a great episode, I still think this episode was a little bit better. I'm really excited for the next few episodes. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.